Made in China. Von der Werkbank der Welt zum größten Konsumentenmarkt und Technologieführer. Eine Reise durch das Leben, Business und die Kultur im Reich der Mitte mit Damian Maib und Thomas Derksen.
A very warm welcome to another episode of our Made in China podcast. We are here once again in Damian's office in the wonderful Shanghai. Three good-looking men sitting here. Damian, thank you for inviting us, and we're very happy to have Luca Paschetto with us today. Very warm welcome to our podcast.
Thank you very much for inviting me today. Like you said, I'm Luca Paschetto. I'm Managing Director for CREUSET China. So very happy to be here today to talk with you.
Perfect. Yeah, it's our honor to have you here, and we dive right into our podcast usually with three quick questions. And I want to start with the first one, which is: imagine you had to change your job for one day. Which one would you choose?
This is a difficult one, actually.
So many jobs you would like to try?
Of course. It's something different, right? I've always been in the luxury industry, so probably something different. I would prefer something in finance.
Ah, okay.
Trading, yeah.
Yeah. I worked in a bank before, I tell you. Yeah, you can try it for one day, but for the whole life, for me...
So you said it right? Yeah. One day only.
One day only, yeah. So question number 2. Is there a prominent person who has particularly inspired you? Who and why? Someone you're looking up to?
There is a lot of people that inspire me, actually, but I tend to get most of the inspiration probably from the family, I think that the most stereotype answers would be, I don't know, Elon Musk, probably these kind of answers, right? But I think the family drives the most inspiration. I saw the efforts from my family, specifically my mother, when I was younger, right? And that is the biggest inspiration. So she teach me really to be always, driven, right? Even when things get very difficult, yeah.
Very nice, very nice. And now imagine you could only eat one meal for 1 year. What would that be?
As an Italian, I should say pizza or spaghetti, right?
Yeah, right.
But or panettone now, and it's been the season, right? Only one meal, I would go with the Sichuan food.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah, out of the box answer.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So definitely not German food. A disclaimer, we just had lunch in the German restaurant and you were very surprised about the portion sizes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. That's very German. Okay.
Take a nap after the podcast.
Yeah. We won't bother you for too long. So, but we're very interested in your experiences you did. You have a lot to share, and Damian and you met before. You had talks already. The first question that's interesting me is, what originally drew you to the luxury industry, and how did your journey from Europe to Asia unfold? Because after you graduated, you came to China directly, right?
Right. So the answer is easy. Again, there is my Italian origins that made the decision probably, right? I always been inspired by the luxury, and I come near Venice, right? As I said before, it's really a kind of center for many luxury brands, the production and so on. So I've always been attracted by that. So I decided the best place probably would be Asia, specifically China, to have I would say, fast growth there. So that's the reason why I decided to join this luxury industry in China.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting because I think you had your education also in France, if I'm right.
Yeah.
And now you've worked with many leading luxury brands and houses like Cartier, Dolce and Gabbana, and Le CREUSET right now. In your opinion, what would be the key differences between the European and the Asian luxury market?
I think the key difference would be fast-paced and evolving consumer as well. Talking about China specifically, the market here, of course, I no need to say that have been changing constantly in the last 10 years, 5 years, and even in the last couple of years, right? If we compare 2023 and 2024, we see so many changes as well. So that's the key difference, right? Then, as I said, also the consumers. Consumers in Europe, they are more, I would say, conservative or relying more on their usual, purchasing habits. No matter now, there is a lot of online as well, but still, right? Offline still sticks as the usual way to purchase things, right? But in China and then extended to Asia, things were changing very fast. I was working with Cartier in 2014, and we were launching projects like e-commerce and so on, which you may think, okay, you were launching Tmall at the time. No, we were launching the D2C, so the website, right? And that because everyone was thinking that this is the way to go, you have to develop your own website, but then it turns out to be, as we all know now, a big failure. It accounts for nothing, right? In China, what is it, like 0.0 something, right? The website. So that's the key difference, I think. Here you have a kind of leadership in the sense that you are more keen to try new things, try out. Then if you fail, it's fine. There are other things that we can follow. So this is the biggest difference from my perspective.
And you already mentioned it, that the consumer market has been evolving over the recent years. We had COVID, which was a big disruption for everyone, also for traveling, because in China, your industry, the luxury industry, is also very connected to traveling, because Chinese tourists were traveling to Europe, buying a lot of stuff, having going with empty suitcases, coming with full suitcases back. How did you see the changes in the luxury industry when it comes to China, like China internally and globally?
Well, we saw during the COVID period, right? Everyone thought, okay, this trend was finished, right? So you don't have basically the duty-free travel retail, right? Was dead during that time, of course, for organic reasons. And then you saw the spike in the internal purchase, domestic purchase in China here. So everyone was thinking, okay, it's done. We attracted the consumer, we win, right? And so on. But now in 2023, right, it started to open again. So you saw everyone that was going out of the market here. And now in 2024, you see again a big spike in the international purchase from Chinese traveler again. This is a problem that we all have, right? Not just me. There is no real way to fix that. There is just a way to limit in a way. And I guess it answers with a lot of CRM, programs and, the potential, activations or activities you can have with the consumer to just reactivate their interest today, right? Because they have so many opportunities again, right? And in the past, during the COVID, we have the, domestic duty-free, right, with Hainan and so on, that was developing so crazy, but now you see, right, what happened there as well. So this disruption that was brought in by the COVID, of course, was helping in the very, very short term, but no one really took actions to create, I would say, a sustainable fix to the problem of Chinese traveler. So again, you have it now, the price gap is huge again, like before. I remember in 2017, we had the price harmonization, right? Which was limiting the gap between Europe prices and China prices. But then now it starts to be still there, right? And the consumer anyways now go to Japan. So it's not just Europe anymore, right? At least before there is a kind of distance, right? But now it's just there. So you go to Japan and it's even better than Europe, right? Mm-hmm. So I see a lot of internal competition, even within the brands. This is not talk about the external competition, which is even more, right? Yeah.
But still, the domestic luxury market is not dead, right? Because 1 week ago, 2 weeks ago, I passed by the Nanjing West Road, and there's all the high class brands there, and people were still lining up to buy stuff. They had a big event going on, and they're coming out with huge shopping bags. So it's just is it complaining on a high level, or is this really a problem on the domestic luxury market?
Let's put it this way. I haven't said that the domestic market is dead. Otherwise, we will not be here. Yeah, probably. Let's say that things have not been fixing, right? That was just a moment during the COVID, right? Because of organic reasons, not because they have found a solution. And then now, let's say that we have a middle class that is limiting the purchase in the domestic market a lot, right? So I usually tend to say that the middle class is holding on, right? And they do prefer to go abroad to purchase because of, the sentiment in the market, right? Which is not as positive as before. There is a lot of price sensitivity as well, right? Which, of course, drives you to either discounted places, right? Touch points like outlets to be offline, right? Like family sales and so on. Or you go online to find out the best pricing point. And you see now a lot of consumers today have this kind of omnichannel purchasing habit, right? You go to the offline retail point, right? And then you check, is it the price the same with online? Is there any difference, right? Is there anything in the gray market that gives me the price advantage and so on, right? So this, of course, is making a lot of difference for the brands, taking away a lot of consumers, making your purchasing journey much more extended, right? So for you, it's an additional investment, yeah.
So coming back to that, you mentioned that the price gap, right, and the idea of harmonizing prices internationally. To what extent has that really happened, and where we are today, basically, you would say on average, right? How much higher are the prices in China than in the home market?
Yeah, I think so on average, versus Japan, we were about 20-25 for what I saw, In the past, I remember there was a gap of 40% versus Europe. With the price harmonization that most of the luxury brands have done during that time, I think the pricing gap went down 10, 15, something like this, during 2017, right? Yeah. But then, you still had a lot of price increase for several of the best performance here in the market. Then put the brands, again, farther and farther, right? I can understand them. Of course, they want to keep desirability, they want to keep exclusivity and so on, right? Which makes a lot of sense, especially on their core pieces, right?
How does price harmonization work? Would they wouldn't decrease the prices in the other countries, they just would increase the prices in the home market while keeping them at other markets stable? Or how is it done?
In 2017 was very much about decreasing Chinese price. Yeah, in 2017. Mm-hmm. But I see also the opposite direction, like you said, later on, right? They noticed that, of course, for margin purpose, it was better to go the other way, right? Of course, we were talking about a market that is different from the market now, right? During that time was booming, right? The kind of the tail of the big boom of luxury, right?
So you were already mentioning the omnichannel approach that most luxury brands go, especially in Asia. Can you define it once again, what it is and why it is so critical to be successful with this approach here in China?
Yeah, like I said before, a customer is very different from European customer, right? There you tend to separate very much online versus offline. But here in China, it's very much about putting things in the same directions. You tend to have same inventory, you tend to have same pricing, which is very, very important. It's a key point, right? For the reasons I explained before. And then you tend to have same experience as well. Your storytelling, right? The same positioning experience online versus offline, because the consumer today here in China is very, very sophisticated, right? And they have a lot of, especially nowadays in 2024, we notice that they have a lot of requests that they didn't have before. So it's becoming more and more demanding, right? So the omnichannel is really a kind of integration of two different worlds, right? So in fact, one is the online that comes in different fashions. You have your flagships, right? Both on Tmall and JD. And you have then the promotional channels. You can have VIP.com, right? Weipinghui. You can have other channels that I would not suggest for luxury brands like Pinduoduo, of course, and so on. That comes in a very, huge promotion, right? Fashion. And then you have channels that are becoming to be increasingly popular, right? Like the S-commerce, which is an extension of the social media, becoming then entering into the e-commerce. Like you have Red, Xiaohongshu, right? And you have TikTok, Douyin for China. Yeah. So it's making a lot of sense today to really harmonize the communication and every different business aspect on these two, online and offline. Yeah.
And throughout your career now, you've also gained extensive experience in CRM,
right?
And digital marketing, right? It's also very useful in terms of harmonizing omnichannel.
Yeah.
What do you see as the biggest challenges in implementing data-driven strategies in the luxury market?
I would say the biggest challenge is to get out probably of the usual guidelines that come from headquarters. Probably. This is a sensitive topic anyways, right? Because it's always difficult to get out of the standardization, that come from global, especially when you start to be part of a group, right? And so on. Data-driven solutions here are just, I would say, the basic point to excel in your omnichannel success, because everything should be measured, in order to take the next actions timely. In China, timely is very important, because otherwise you're going to be always a follower, right? And being a follower doesn't allow you to have the margins you want to have. of course, the revenues you want to have at the very beginning, right? So I think that for CRM, to get a little bit more specific, it's a big problem to let the headquarters understand what is CRM today, because they think that CRM in China is still the clienteling you do in the store. Like I give you the bottle of water, right? Or I call you back after, I don't know, the purchase happened, right? But in China, it's much more than that. It's really like controlling the life cycle of the consumer. Why we say controlling? Because the consumer is not coming back by himself today. It's really very much about driving the right proposal offering to the consumer based on a lot of things that you don't know if you don't do data, if you don't use data-driven solutions, right? Today, every consumer, right, it's really a key part of your business. Of course, you have plenty of segments, right? You usually tend not to focus on the lowest part of the pyramid, right? But still, because of the problem of the missing or holding middle class, right? Today, we still need to focus on all of them because the volumes are not just enough, right? So with this data-driven, the CRM today becomes a key element to keep up with the competition. This is the difference with a few years ago. If you do that a few years ago, you were like at the leading part of the market, but now it's just about follower. If you just do that, if you don't do it, yeah,
very interesting. And if you think about people buying luxury goods, you would think they would love to go to the store, somebody serves them a coffee and takes on white gloves and takes out the products to show you that you as a customer, you can feel and see and touch the product. But in China, e-commerce is really important. How do you see this in the luxury industry? How important is online and how important is offline still?
I would say that offline will never finish in the luxury industry globally. This is not just in China, of course. It will never end. The offline will always be there and the place to be for luxury brands. Then you can say, of course, more for the watches, jewelry, the classic fashion and so on, right? Less maybe for cosmetics and so on. Okay, I agree with that, but it's not the point now. The point is just to understand the importance of e-commerce, which is not just a minimal importance. Now let's go back to China. China, of course, the e-commerce in the retail companies, specifically in luxury, is becoming now a must-have, right? Then what is the share? That is depending on the brand strategy and so on. But I see a big chunk of the business anyways, right? What is it, like 1/3 of that on average? Is still a very big chunk versus like what it was before, like I mentioned with Cartier and so on, right? Why it is so important? Everyone would say because of the extension of the China, right? In terms of how big is the nation, right? Yeah, I agree, of course. A lot of brands, like we were discussing now during lunch, right? They were distributed anywhere, right? Because the market was booming at the time. But for obvious reasons, right? Controlling your distribution became a necessity, I would say. So then you have to find a way to fix that, right? The e-commerce came to save, in a sense, right? Came to help, anyways. Today, I think that the e-commerce, it's really a way to extend the connection with the brand. Like I was saying before, it's a touch point that is driving storytelling. So it's a lot about the heritage of the brands. It's a lot about maintaining the brand equity. It's not just another channel, Very interesting point. During the beginning, like I said before, 2014 and afterwards, it was very much seen as an upselling channel. It's just, an additional channel just to make a little bit more money. But now it's definitely not like that. Yeah, it's a key part of the business.
And now you mentioned a couple of topics already. Xiaohongshu, platforms, Douyin, Tmall, JD. What platforms, both in terms of e-commerce and then social media and maybe also social commerce, do you think are most relevant for the luxury industry?
For me today, the ones that I mentioned, with the exception of Pinduoduo, right, would be the way to go for different reasons. Of course, the flagships for the reason I just mentioned, right, and maintaining the touch point with your key consumer, as well as maintaining the extension of the country, right? But then also for the brand maintenance of the brand equity. But then you go into the huge stock that a lot of brands have nowadays because of a very slow 2024. Then potentially you can consider platforms like the VIP.com that I mentioned before, or others like even Douyin, the S-commerce. It's becoming more and more a platform for stock like liquidation, right? And more of a promotional thing. It's getting very commercial and so on, which is good, right? When you start to have such a huge amount of stock, right? You still want to make full use of that. Anyways, but then you have Red, which is maintaining very well the storytelling. And in terms of e-commerce, S-commerce in this case, it's still a relevant tool to use versus the flagship stores that I mentioned before. I don't see a big difference there. Of course, you talk about a different segmentation, right? And different purchasing habit. You go alone, right? On Tmall and JD, you purchase by your own will in a way, right? And you purchase during a live streaming potentially more likely with Xiaohongshu, with Red. And so you have someone that is really like enticing you to buy, right? With the KOLs, influencers and so on there. It would be much easier there, yeah.
And when you think of spokespeople for advertising for luxury brands, mostly in the past it was Hollywood superstars or like really high class, high profile spokespeople. But nowadays influencers are also quite important when it comes to promoting on social media. How do you see the approach in the luxury industry? Do they work with influencers? And if yes, how do they choose the right ones?
Of course, every brand is working with influencers. Then depending which influencers, is really a very budget thing at the end of the day. The spoke people, I saw a lot of success. I saw a lot of failures. So would I do that? Probably not. It's too risky, right? And we cannot control them at the end of the day, right? So giving a heritage brand 100 years, 150, all in the hands of one spokesperson that can do anything wrong in any moment, right? For me, it would be too risky. But that's just my take. Yeah. So that's why a lot of brands today probably decide to go with the influencers that get from the top KOLs, right, down to the even KOS now, right, which is becoming something even more like professional, right, and more close to the brand. That's the right way to go probably now for budget-wise and ROI-wise and so on, right? So for me, that's the way to go. Why? Except for what I just said, it's also because they are perceived as more, I would say, relevant by their followership, right? They are perceived as more honest in a way, less commercial, even though you always have exceptions, right? But that's a kind of the very basic, description I would give. Yeah.
Yeah. Could you share one of the most exciting initiatives you've worked on in your career now, be it brand strategy, CRM, digitalization?
I have one very good one.
Yeah,
a big surprise, and that you didn't mention. I work for a Chinese company. Yeah, as a CMO, later on GM. That company was called DR, Dairy Ring, selling diamonds, right? And
I worked with them.
You worked
actually
with them? Really?
Yeah. I made a video with them in Paris.
Okay.
Yeah, because
they have the Louvre.
In the Louvre, yeah.
Always empty, that store.
Yeah. I was the only one there.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting. Yeah.
Very
2 years ago.
Yeah. We opened that.
You were still there for 2 years ago?
We opened that one.
Yeah. Okay.
It was very much about the classic, like a branding store you want to do for internationalization.
Okay, sorry for interrupting you. I was just...
Sounds amazing. Tell us more,
Yeah, it's just about, I started with that brand there then a little bit more than 2 years ago. And then we came up, with purely a storytelling thing, right? They always had this slogan, which was very much about the translation, literally said, you're one ring for the one person, right?
Yeah.
They have very special purchasing journey, right? Without getting into the details, you have just to give the ID in order to register for purchasing a diamond, and then you cannot purchase that engagement anymore, right? So you just have one chance for your true love and so on. But I mean, the story is very good, right? But before it was very much just about a sentence that was not driven, no one knew about this and so on. So we just started to do a lot of exposure through Douyin. stories, kind of short dramas, short comedies, and so on. And then that exploded massively, and then the company's got like billions and billions and billions. Yeah, it's as simple as that. Yeah, and then you can say, but then there is a good product behind that. There is, another like supply chain advantages and blah, blah, blah. No, as simple as a good story created the success of the brand. Then where is the brand now? Doesn't matter. They succeeded. They became really top popular. At that period, there was in Shanghai. You can see they are everywhere.
Yeah.
Metro station, OH, everywhere. Social media was just booming for them. I guess you remember, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, very interesting.
I should check out this case. Yeah, sounds like a very interesting case to study.
Indeed. Yeah.
As a last question, we are very interested about a little in a little forecast from you as someone who has decades of experience in the luxury industry. Where do you think the luxury industry in China is going the next 5 years? Because we have also a lot of listeners who have to do a lot of strategic decisions for their own brands, for their B2C or B2B brands, and they're very interested in trends that brands should be looking out for now.
That's a very hard question, right? Everyone would love to hear the answer.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a complicated market now. So, and it's not me saying that, right? We see a lot, like I said already, a lot of, I would say negative or not as positive as before, right? Sentiment, as well as a lot of consumers being so much about price sensitivity. So I think the luxury need to, let's put it this way. I'm going to tell you what they should do from my perspective, okay, in the next 5 years. So luxury has always been doing the same thing in the last, 10 years, basically, okay, changing based on the trends, but it was always very much about the same thing. They should reinvent themselves, and I saw only the ones reinventing themselves getting the results, even in the past, right? You saw a lot of very famous brands, without mentioning here, changing drastically their style with their creative director and then flourishing again, becoming the leaders in the market, right? So it's not just about getting the right creative director, which ultimately means the right product, right? Which is incredibly important, right? But it's also about the strategy that they have at the very top line, right? What should they do? It's not just about keep opening new boutiques to get into new touch points around the country, as well as it's not just about opening the platforms. Again, we see in 2024 the new wave of multi-platform distribution, right, in the e-commerce. So everyone was going crazy. I opened the more distribution, the better, right? But it's not just like that. Even for social media, it's not just about that. They really need to understand their core audience, target audience, right? That's where the CRM comes in help, right? And starting from that point, so always starting from the consumer or potential consumer, then they should get down into where should I get distributed, right? Where and how should I get communicated to reach them, right? Why DR was successful is because they got the right message in the right channel at the right target audience. And I see a lot of brands today in China being too much, connected with the guidelines from global and not thinking, in the way they should think, not localizing in the way they should. It's not about the product. I don't need a red product with written just fu, right? To be relevant in the market here. That is very superficial. The customer is not superficial anymore here. So they really need to get the proper localization at different layers of business, right? To be relevant here. And just give a clear cut, right? To what has been done till now. So I think that it will happen with the new blood, New blood is coming in the luxury, so a lot of changes we see. I think we are already seeing some of them and more to come.
Yeah, that's a very good advice. Reinventing yourself is important for every brand, for every company, and in the end for every person, right? Because
right.
Jenin was reinventing itself all the time. I try to do it, and brands also do it. So yeah, Luca, thank you so much for the insight. It was very helpful and very interesting, and we are looking forward to the next 5 years in the luxury industry.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Luca. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting. Thank you, Damien. Thank you, Thomas.